Begin with some positives by thanking the Eagles Haven team for helping our families endure the hours spent in the courthouse. By thanking you, Judge Scherer, for presiding over the trial with all its twists and turns, as well as keeping the press at bay while allowing them to inform the public. You were as compassionate as the law allowed to our families. Thanks to the state attorneys that prosecuted this case for your dedication, your professionalism, and constant communication with our families. To the victims' advocates team, thanks for sitting with us, letting us vent our frustrations and answer an untold number of questions, from what to expect next to where is prosciutto. This case, with 17 innocent students and teachers murdered at school, is why we have the death penalty in Florida's laws. If the jury had followed that law, if the jury took in the evidence presented, there is only one logical and fact-based outcome. Sadly, the jury ignored the facts and went with emotion. They worried about how they would feel if this murdering bastard was put to death by the state of Florida for committing this heinous crime. They were selfish and misguided and allowed prisoner number 0893407 to avoid the punishment he deserved. The jury was worn out and did not want to be sequestered. The jury instructions were complex, and I believe these factors combined and led to a less than thorough deliberation process. Did they consider what kind of message their verdict sent to our nation's students and teachers when they found a way to excuse the murder of Gina and the others? Did they consider how they would explain their verdict to the siblings of the victims, as my wife and I struggled to do? The current requirement for a unanimous decision for a death verdict is tough to meet. It allows one activist juror with preconceived bias against the death penalty to swing the case in favor of evil. Once one juror shows sympathy, decides that they can't live with the tough decision to hold a murderer, and in this case, a mass murderer, accountable, it relieves the others and allows them an avenue to avoid voting for the death penalty. The vote is not to put a random individual to death. It is called the death penalty because it's supposed to be imposed due to the actions of the convicted murderer. Assuming that's supported by facts, as the jury acknowledged clearly in this case. An interesting historical fact is that now two of the most infamous mass murderers in Florida history, Ted Bundy and this murderer of my child and 16 others, did not receive a unanimous verdict of death in our state's courts. Perhaps it's time for the state legislature to make a change, back to a simple majority or perhaps a supermajority of 9 votes out of 12, to impose the maximum punishment when the aggravating factors warrant it. This would be more fair to the victims. My beautiful, bubbly, and kind daughter deserved to live a happy and full life. She should have been protected at her school from the monster sitting here, with no less than, 6 BSO deputies, as he enjoys the protection of his rights in this courtroom. I applaud the court and the prosecution team for following the ideals of our justice system, as the evil murderer enjoyed a fair trial. I don't believe the case was fair to the victims. The court allowed the defense to show every aspect of prisoner 809-3407's life prior to the execution of Gina and her classmates. Pictures showing his smiling face, while at the same time claiming life was so tough it justified the mass murder of innocent students and teachers in school. Our families were prohibited from bringing photos of our murdered loved ones to the courtroom. We couldn't even wear bracelets or pins to court to represent the victims. The court did everything it could to dehumanize our beautiful Gina, her classmates, and her teachers, who were massacred by this admitted murderer. My family and the others had to sit like church mice in the courtroom for fear of influencing the jury and possibly causing a mistrial. We all showed amazing grace and decorum as we learned the terrible things this murdering bastard did to our children, spouses, and fathers. The justice system even stops the jury from considering our victim impact statements. How could it be a fair trial when the only people who can speak for the victims, those who cannot speak for themselves, have the jury instructed to disregard our words? The system is biased against the victims. It trampled the First Amendment rights of my family in a misguided effort to protect the perpetrator of these heinous crimes. This injustice must be fixed. The victims' rights must be recognized. As for the defense team, you had a job to do. You had no case because the facts of the cold, calculated, horrific actions should have sealed this mass murderer's fate via the law. Somehow, though, you all managed to be petty and marginally professional. You disrespected the court in words and action. You laughed and joked with the twisted and purely evil man you defended. You brought in talented out-of-town personnel to bolster your team and help represent the murderer of my child. No expense was spared as you sought out experts in established and in questionable science, many of which you did not use as you chose to prey on the jury's emotions. What was the cost of prisoner 089-3407's defense to the taxpayers of Broward County? That number has yet to be revealed. Those citizens should all ask why. Why was so much effort put towards this prisoner, while in this very building, the same week his verdict was read, 2 other murderers were sentenced to death for their crimes? Quite frankly, you had no right to ask this jury for mercy. He showed no mercy when he shot my forever 14-year-old Gina in the chest, just as he thought about doing when he searched the internet for months before. The dirtbag even came back and shot her on a second pass. Unbelievable. As I read to the court last time I spoke here, Gina loved life. She loved her family, and she was literally a lifesaver. She would have gone on to change the world had she been able to grow up and fulfill her potential. My family had hoped this jury would follow the law and vote to give the low-life admitted killer the maximum penalty allowed to the fullest extent of the law. We expected the admitted mass murderer to die in prison and at the soonest possible opportunity under the law. He should not be allowed any kind of life, any joy, or any time to reflect quietly on his continued existence. We all have choices to make in life. struggles we must all work through. Despite these struggles, we should look to help one another. Yet the dirtbag murderer, who has now gotten a fair trial, chose to kill and maim as many innocent students as teachers as he could, without remorse, without compassion, and with extreme prejudice. He deserves the same treatment throughout his stay in the state penitentiary system. He has had a lot of help throughout his life, and yet he chose to attack our nation's future by shooting up a school. The murdering bastard that took my daughter's life has benefited from the grace and protections of every system our society offers. He should now be placed in a correctional facility where he is forced to interact without those protections. The misguided jury thought prisoner 089-3407 was failed by society. To be clear, the system, schools, mental health professionals, law enforcement, and now the justice system failed my daughter Gina, her classmates, and her teachers, which he chose to murder. A planned, cold, calculated, heinous attack where the monster chose to pull his trigger 139 individual times. Today, the court prepares to sentence this admitted mass murderer. However, the legacy and greatness of the victims is being preserved and extended because Stand With Parkland, formed by our damaged yet amazingly resilient families, succeeded in creating the Federal School Safety Clearinghouse, which today begins a 3-day national summit on how to protect America's schools. As for my wife, Jennifer, my son, Anthony, and our entire family, we will remember Gina every day. We will honor her memory at every opportunity. We will work to make our nation's schools safer for other students and teachers. And the Gina Rose Montalto Memorial Foundation will help others achieve their goals, spread kindness, and keep Gina's light shining for all in this world to see. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.